Right now, zombies are arguably as popular as they have ever been, no matter where you look, with movies, TV shows, books, video games, board games. There seems to be something zombie-related. Although back in the 80s, zombies weren't nearly as popular, and a little movie called Dead Heat dared to do something different, to make a movie where the zombies were both the villains and the heroes. Dead Heat's a 1988 action horror comedy from director Mark Goldblatt. Although if this movie was made now, they'd most likely call it Beverly Hills Zombie Cop. The movie opens with a couple of guys getting ready to rob a jewelry store. If they succeed, maybe they can use this money to buy some better masks. While in the store, one of the clerks hits the alarm. Officers Roger Mortis and Doug Bigelow are on the case. Bigelow looks like an angry chimp.
211 in progress at Melrose Place. Proceed immediately.
You didn't say may I?
211? I think that's police code for a cast member coming back from the dead. The police are at the scene of the crime, ready to apprehend these criminals peacefully.
Freeze! Drop your weapons!
No matter how much lead the cops drill into these two, they won't go down. Finally, Roger and Doug take them out in the most extreme ways possible.
Uh-oh!
This, of course, leads to the captain yelling at them.
Unauthorized use of a city vehicle. Reckless endangerment of property and lives.
So, we're off the case? Roger and Doug are discussing the robberies. There's been a string of violent daytime burglaries over the past 2 weeks, where the criminals don't die when they're shot. The two head to the mortuary to see the coroner, Dr. Smithers. She tells them the guys they brought in were already dead.
I certified them myself. I even took pictures.
I like to keep a scrapbook of all my autopsies. If these guys run dead, why were they even bothering to hide their identity? Dr. McNabb shows up to defuse Smithers' statement.
I never forget a body, Doctor.
Well, in 5 years, she'll be damn good, but right now she's too quick to jump to fanciful conclusions.
Yes, because it's so easy to confuse a live person with a dead one. Smithers tells Roger about a drug she found on the corpses that a local research facility just purchased a large quantity of, so they head to Dante Pharmaceuticals to check it out. In the 80s, it was perfectly okay to look at porn on the job. They meet with the lab manager, Randy, who takes them on a tour of the facility.
When we have to kill an animal, it goes in here. The room is airtight. And a piston evacuates the air in a period of a few seconds.
So nice of them to have the asphyxiation chamber right across the hall from the lounge. Roger distracts Randy so Doug can break into the no admittance area. Doug finds a messed up zombie biker and has to fight him off. So this place has discovered how to resurrect the dead, and they're creating an army of undead criminals to rob stores. Roger hears the commotion and goes to help Doug. The biker knocks him into the asphyxiation chamber, and a mysterious figure turns it on. Doug tries to open the door, but he can't. Oh, if only there was some device he could use to shoot out the glass. Oh well, Roger dies. Rebecca shows up on the scene, and they use the resurrection chamber to bring Roger back from the dead.
Hi, guys.
You're live.
And you have a unibrow. Dr. McNabb shows up and isn't at all completely suspicious and guilty.
I thought you were dead.
Oh, sorry to disappoint you, Doctor.
After some tests, they see that Roger has no heartbeat and seems to be part Terminator. Rebecca tells Roger that after looking at the lab records, he has about 10 to 12 hours to live before he dies permanently. Now that Roger's dead, it's the perfect time for him to go cross-dressing. The two stop Randy before she can get away. Roger asks her some questions while Doug investigates her underpants. Doug finds a VHS of an old Creature double feature episode. Some zombies bust in and shoot up the joint. This is me every time I play Call of Duty. They chase the zombies outside and discover that electrocution and impalement works to kill them. Randy explains the old man in the video was Arthur Loudermilk, her father. He's been bankrolling Dante Pharmaceuticals, but died a few weeks ago. Roger goes to clean himself up, but where are his bullet wounds? They go into a Chinese restaurant to talk to Professor Sub-Zero.
Life and death are both expressions of the same eternal spirit.
You ought to write fortune cookies, pal.
Let me illustrate.
They try to talk to Mr. Thule, but he flips a switch, which makes all the creatures in the room come to life and attack. So that's how he keeps his seafood so fresh. Roger's having a hell of a time fighting off this liver. The freezer busts open, and out comes a skinned cow. I think it's trying to mate with him. Roger shoots the device, which stops all the undead. He then delivers possibly the best line of the entire film.
Hey, you're hurt.
Lady, I'm fucking dead.
They head to a library to check the obituaries and match the names on a list with a bunch of rich people who recently died. Research back before the internet. Roger freaks out when he remembers he has 6 hours to live and runs to the front of the building.
Hey, Raj, that was quite a chase.
Yes, that sure was a leisurely jog from one side of the room to the other. They take Randy to the morgue where they meet Rebecca.
Rebecca Smithers, Randy James.
Hello.
Oh, you work here?
Yes, actually, I do.
Rebecca tells Roger she thinks she found a way to extend the resurrection period. Roger and Randy go to Loudermilk's grave, and Doug heads back to Randy's apartment. While there, they discover a message. They head to pick up Doug, and they find, I think it's Doug. Kinda looks like him.
It's Doug.
Oh, okay, it's Doug. Randy tells Roger that she was dead and was helping Loudermilk in exchange for them keeping her alive. And then she melts. Some women look really different without makeup. Roger calls Rebecca to let her know that everyone is dead. He realizes the message he found spells out Body Doc, which is McNabb's license plate. Roger confronts McNabb for killing him. McNabb's been resurrecting rich old people in exchange for them giving him a large portion of their money. Thule and some zombies show up to stop Roger. McNabb locks Roger in an ambulance with the body of Rebecca. He releases the parking brake and crashes the ambulance. Sure is a good thing he was on a hill. Severely burned, Roger heads out to get his revenge. McNabb's talking to a group of old people, and Loudermilk shows up to prove he's still alive. Roger makes a grand entrance into the lab. McNabb demonstrates the resurrection machine by bringing Doug back to life. Roger breaks into the room and proceeds to shoot up the joint. Doug gets up and the two go after McNabb.
Oh no, you bastards aren't gonna take me.
They then decide to bring him back to get their proper revenge.
You want to see what happens when you resurrect somebody twice?
They blow up the machine and then walk off to heaven, I think. The movie was filmed mostly in Los Angeles, California, for about $5.4 million. The movie was written by Terry Black, who also wrote episodes of Tales from the Crypt. His brother Shane Black had much greater success. Shane was the highest paid screenplay writer at one time, getting $4 million for The Long Kiss Goodnight. He had a cameo in Dead Heat as the officer who gives Roger his gun. Anyway, Terry Black was inspired by the classic film DOA, in which a guy is poisoned and spends the film trying to find his killer before he dies. To honor the film, they have it playing when they find Doug's body. The movie had an ongoing dead fish theme throughout it.
Very weird going on here. I'd say there were...
Roger?
The studio brought in Darren Star to help punch up the dialogue. He was there throughout the shooting, and especially during the Melrose shootout. The director joked that this is where Star got his inspiration for Melrose Place, which he produced a few years later. Robert Picardo had a small role as the lieutenant. He met the director while he was working on The Howling, and this was a chance for both of them to work together again. Martha Quinn had a cameo as the news anchor. The legendary Vincent Price had a small role as Loudermilk. Having him on board definitely added a layer of class to the film. The director made a deal with Mrs. Fields Cookies to have this shot in the film, and in exchange they delivered fresh-baked cookies to the set every day they were filming. At the time, Joe Piscopo was a very popular comedian/actor. The studio was so happy with him being on board, they wouldn't have made the film without him. Ernest Farino did the visual effects. The lightning used in the resurrection chamber was the same effect they used to bring Arnold into the past in The Terminator. Steve Johnson did the great practical makeup effects. Everything from the undead Chinese food to the barbecued Roger. The skinned cow was an actor under all that latex. The undead biker wasn't makeup. They created a mask for the actor, since it looked just as good and wouldn't require hours in the makeup chair to apply. Dante Pharmaceutical is really Glendale Water Reclamation Plant, which has been used in numerous movies because of its unique look. The studio fought the director over the gore and violence levels. He wanted the violence to reach cartoonish levels, but the studio kept pushing to keep it more toned down. He argued that by not making it as violent as possible, they made it look more serious. Like the scene where Roger and a guard are shooting each other with Uzis. The scene was supposed to go on for much longer. The movie was successful, and New World approached Mark Goldblatt and Terry Black with the prospect of a sequel. They argued that it would be impossible since every major character in the original was dead by the end of the film. Treat Williams' name Roger Mortis is a play on rigor mortis. This movie is great. It's such a unique take on the undead, and the dark humor is hilarious. Treat Williams was awesome, and Joe Piscopo was funny as usual. He even ad-libbed some of his lines.
Fine man, Captain Mayberry. Make a really good gym teacher.
Just be glad we're still employed.
Call me Thursday.
This is a horror comedy that does a nice balance of both horror and comedy. Horror because some of the stuff that happens is truly awful, and comedy because the dialogue is gold.
Sorry to interrupt your erection, pal, but we'd like to speak with the management of this facility.
At 83 minutes, the film flies by, and thanks to Steve Johnson's makeup effects, the zombies still look good, even 26 years later. This is one of the best horror comedies of all time. Now, let's see if there's really a movie called Zombie Cop. Yep, I knew it. He's back from...
You're faking it. He's faking it.